The queen lived in a beautiful castle. She had a daughter whom she dreamed of. The child had black hair and snow-white skin. Therefore, they named her Snow White. The queen soon died. The king did not grieve for a long time. A year later, he brought a new queen to the palace. She was beautiful but angry. The woman brought a magic mirror with her. Every day she admired her reflection in him and asked him the same question: who is the most beautiful in the world? The mirror has always told only the truth. Therefore, it honestly praised the beauty of the queen, and the woman beamed with happiness. Snow White grew, and every year her beauty blossomed brighter. And now, once again, speaking to the mirror, the queen heard in response that now she is not the most beautiful in the world, but Snow White. The queen was not going to endure this in her own palace. She ordered her faithful servant to lead the princess into an impenetrable thicket and kill. But the servant could not, even for the sake of the queen, kill the sweet girl. He brought the princess into a dark forest and let her go. And he himself returned to the castle and told the queen that he had followed her order. For a long time, the princess wandered through the forest. Along the way she was helped by all kinds of forest inhabitants. Snow White was very kind to them, and therefore they became strong friends. In the evening, the princess accidentally stumbled upon a small house. She went into it and saw that there was no one in the house. The table was set for 7 people, and there were 7 cots in the bedroom. And everything in this house was very small. Therefore, Snow White realized that 7 little people live here. After a long and difficult journey, she lay down on one of the beds and fell fast asleep. The 7 dwarfs returned home late at night. They were greatly surprised by the appearance of an unexpected guest. Sleeping Snow White was so charming that the dwarves decided to let her sleep, and did not wake her. Morning has come. Snow White woke up, saw the 7 dwarfs, and was scared. But they were affectionate with her, and the girl told about her misfortune. They immediately liked Snow White, and the dwarfs invited her to stay with them. Moreover, she agreed to take care of the house, cooking, washing and cleaning. Every morning the gnomes went to the mountains to mine gold and precious stones and returned late at night. Leaving for work, they warned Snow White to be afraid of the evil stepmother and not open the door to strangers. At this time, the queen, as usual, went to the secret room to talk to the magic mirror. But the mirror suddenly said that she was not the most beautiful in the world, but Snow White. That the princess is still alive, and lives with the gnomes in the house. The queen became very angry, and decided to deal with Snow White herself. She went to a secret room, and cooked a poisonous venomous apple there. It was very beautiful on the outside, but if someone ate even a piece, he would certainly die. When the apple was ready, the queen changed into an old merchant, and came to the house of the dwarfs. Seeing the sweet old woman, Snow White felt sorry for her. She did not suspect anything, and left the house. The old woman treated the girl to a ripe apple and said that if she eats this apple, she will remain young and beautiful forever. Snow White believed her, and as soon as she bit the apple, she fell down dead and stopped breathing. The contented queen went to the palace. In the evening, the dwarves returned from work and saw Snow White lying on the ground. She was not breathing. They sobbed so loudly and lamented that their cry was heard by the handsome prince, who was hunting in the forest nearby. It became interesting to him what kind of howl arose that scared away all the animals. And when the prince found the house of the dwarfs, he saw Snow White. She was so beautiful that the young prince immediately fell in love with her. He persuaded the dwarves to take her with him to the castle, because there he has doctors who can cure Snow White. The dwarfs allowed it. Then the prince ordered his servants to carry the princess on their shoulders. And when they were carrying her, it happened that the servants stumbled over some bush, and from the concussion a piece of a poisonous apple fell out of Snow White's mouth, and she woke up. Seeing the young prince, the girl also fell in love with him and agreed to marry him. They also invited their wicked stepmother to the wedding. Out of anger that Snow White is still alive, and that now a long and happy life awaits her, the queen broke the magic mirror and never looked at it again. Once upon a time there was a little, nice girl. She was sweet to everyone who only saw her. But she was the loveliest and dearest of all to her grandmother, who did not even know what to give her beloved granddaughter. Once she gave her a red velvet hat. And since this hat was very suitable for her, and she did not want to wear anything else, they began to call her Little Red Riding Hood. Once her mother asked to take a piece of cake and a bottle of wine to her grandmother. They say that she is both sick and weak, it will be good for her. She ordered my mother not to run away from the road, otherwise she would fall and break the bottle, and then grandmother would get nothing. And when she comes to her grandmother, so that she does not forget to say hello to her. Little Red Riding Hood obeyed, took the presents and set off. And my grandmother lived already behind the forest, half an hour walk from the village. And as soon as Little Red Riding Hood entered the forest, she met a wolf. The girl, however, did not know what kind of fierce beast it was, and was not in the least afraid of him. She greeted politely. The wolf also behaved very decently, so Little Red Riding Hood told the wolf that she was bringing gifts to her beloved grandmother. And while she was telling how to get to her grandmother's house, the wolf thought to himself how he could eat not only the old woman, but also a pretty girl. And then the wolf thought of showing Little Red Riding Hood a huge meadow with beautiful flowers. Little Red Riding Hood, as she looked at the many wonderful flowers, thought that it would be nice to bring grandmother a fresh bunch of flowers, because that would also please her. Yes, and ran away from the road to the side, and began to collect flowers. Slightly picking one flower, as the other beckons her, it is even better, and she will run after that. And so it went further and further into the depths of the forest. And the wolf ran straight to grandmother's house and knocked on the door. Grandma asked who was there. And the wolf replied in a thin voice that it was Little Red Riding Hood who brought the pie and wine. The old woman believed and ordered to press on the latch and enter. The wolf pressed the latch, the door flew open, and he ran to his grandmother's hut. He rushed to grandmother's bed and swallowed it at once. Then he put on his grandmother's dress and her cap on her head, went to bed and waited. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood ran and ran after flowers, and when she collected as many of them as she could carry, then she again remembered about her grandmother and went to her house. She was very surprised that the door was wide open, and when she entered the room, she called out to her grandmother. There was no answer. The granddaughter came up to the bed and saw grandmother was lying, and she had pulled her cap on her very nose, and it seemed so strange. Little Red Riding Hood asked with bewilderment why grandmother had such big ears. And the wolf answered in a grandmother's voice to hear better. Then Little Red Riding Hood asked why grandmother had such big eyes. To better see you, the wolf answered. And the arms are so big that it is easier to grip. And when Little Red Riding Hood saw the wolf's mouth and only asked why grandmother had such a nasty big mouth, the wolf pounced on her, screaming, "So I could eat you!" And how he jumped out from under the blanket and swallowed the poor girl. Having had enough in this way, the wolf again went to bed, fell asleep, and began to snore as much as he could. At that time a hunter was passing by the grandmother's house, heard snoring and wondered if something had happened to the old woman that she snored so. He entered the house, went to the bed and saw that the wolf was sleeping there. and he has been hunting this villain for a long time. He wanted to kill him with a gun, but it occurred to him that the wolf, perhaps, swallowed his grandmother and that she could still be saved. That is why he did not shoot, but opened his wolf's mouth wide, and saw a red cap flash there. A girl jumped out of her mouth and said that her grandmother was still there. The hunter opened his wolf's mouth even wider, and the old grandmother somehow managed to get out behind the Red Riding Hood. They were delighted, began to hug and thank the hunter. They decided to teach a cunning wolf a lesson. They brought up large stones as soon as possible, stuffed them into the wolf's mouth and belly, and carried him out into the yard. And when the wolf woke up, he saw the hunter, and was about to escape, but could not bear the weight of the stones, and fell to the ground. This delighted all three, while the wolf got up and barely dragged its heavy belly into the dark forest. They never saw him again. This is how they taught the cunning wolf a lesson, and Little Red Riding Hood decided that she would never again disobey Mother's orders.